What's up, guys? Nemo Propaganda bringing you guys another review. Today we have the Wharfedale EVO 4.2 bookshelf speakers. Some of you newer subscribers might have thought this was just a subwoofer channel, but it is not. This channel started with bookshelf speakers, and I will always review bookshelf speakers. I've just been on one hell of a subwoofer kick lately. Anyhow, Wharfedale EVO 4.2, $1,000 a pair. We're going to talk about them in this review, obviously. So for those of you that have followed me for a while now and maybe seen a lot of my content, you might have noticed I start most of my videos the same way, where I'll say something like, I'm going to tell you guys about some specs and standout features. I'll tell you what it sounds like. We'll do some comparisons, then we'll wrap it up. And I do this little hand motion. But that's not what we're going to do here. This video is going to be a little bit different for a few reasons. And let's just jump into it and you'll see why. So I'll throw some specs on screen so you guys can check that out. And I will tell you about some standout features. Now, if you've ever watched a review of any Wharfedale speaker, you have most likely heard the reviewer talk about the fit, finish, cabinetry, and real wood veneer that you get for the money and how impeccable it is. And I just have to echo that. It is so true. It's one of those situations where it kind of makes you think like, why aren't we seeing this more often in this price range? If Wharfedale can do it, why can't other companies? And you guys know I hate vinyl. I really do. I don't want to see it, especially on anything that's $1,000 and up, whether it's a subwoofer or a pair of speakers. I think we can get a real wood veneer or a nice painted finish, and I think we ought to. We should. Wharfedale has proved it's possible, and it's not like it's a tiny speaker. This is a big boy, so there's a lot of that wood veneer. Speaking of size, let me throw some comparisons on screen because I think it's important for you guys to realize how large it is. I'll show it next to the Focal Aria 906 so you can see that. And that speaker is a little bit tall because of its front port. And next, I'll show it next to the Buchart S400 because that's a fairly common speaker. You guys have probably seen that thing reviewed to high hell. And you can see in both pictures that the Wharfedale EVO 4.2 is quite a bit larger than both of them. It's taller, it's deeper, it's a beefy boy. Back to the real wood veneer real quick because it's not like they just slapped this on here and cheaped out on other things, guys. We have a nice three-way design with a 6.5-inch mid-bass driver, a 2-inch mid-range, and an AMT jet, folded horn ribbon, AMT, whatever the heck you want to call it, tweeter. So like we're getting a lot for the money, right? And that's kind of like, I've heard that said in a lot of videos where people are reviewing Wharfedale. So I just want to kind of echo that and just reassure you guys, it is true when you look at these, like you don't think they're $1,000. They're really nice. Around back, we have 2 sets of binding posts for bi-amping or bi-wiring that most likely no one will ever use, but they do look pretty cool. The last standout feature is going to be the bass port. It's obviously not up front, nor is it around the back. It's the slot you see that goes all the way around the speaker, which is pretty cool. Some of you might have thought this section here was a part of the speaker stand. It's not. This is part of the speaker. And again, this slot is the port. I think that's supposed to help it have better bass response regardless of where you put it in the room. And if that is the case, I did find that to be true. The last standout feature I'm going to tell you, I know I already said the last one was the bass port, but sorry, is the magnetic grill. It's another area where for the money, Wharfedale is giving us something super cool. It's just like they take this whole complete package look when designing their gear. I like seeing magnetic grills because I don't like seeing those extra holes for those cup style grills we see. And there's no reason for it. It's 2021. It's going to be 2022 in a couple of months, like $1,000 and up. Let's just make magnetic grills, painted finishes, or real wood veneers, just industry standard. There's no reason not to. Anyhow, so let's jump into the bass real quick. The bass from the speaker is fantastic. There's a lot of it. It's going to be right in the middle with respect to being not too much on the SPL side, not too much on the SQ side. I will say if anything, it airs just slightly off center, more towards the SPL side. It's a little bit heavy. It has very strong attack. It comes on very strong. The bass actually, attack reminded me a lot of a SVS subwoofer like a SB2000 Pro. But at the same time, it was very deep, like a rhythmic subwoofer. So I thought I found that interesting. I don't know if it's just because I've reviewed so many subwoofers, my brain was interpreting it that way, but this is a kind of speaker much like the KEF LS50 Meta, where because the bass is kind of right in the middle between SQ and SPL, you should be able to pair it with most subwoofers that are, as long as they're pretty good. If you want more of that SPL sound, you want to pair it with something like the SVS SB2000 Pro. If you want more of like a SQ presentation, you can pair it with something like a Rhythmic F12. If you want just more of what it already has, you can pair it with a subwoofer that's kind of right in the middle also, like the KEF KC62. So moving on to the mid-range and treble is where things get different, because I'm not going to tell you about it. And I hate to do like a Thomas and Stereo a couple years ago quote here and say, you know, if you guys want to see like a technical analysis of the speaker, watch, you know, Sean's channel Zero Fidelity. He did a great review of these speakers, and no one can do a better review of these speakers. But it's true. These speakers are super fussy, and your mileage really can vary. So if, I just want to be really clear, if you're not watching this for entertainment, you're watching this video because these are on your potential buy list, you're thinking about actually getting a pair for yourself, watch Sean's video from Zero Fidelity. I'll throw a link on screen, put a link in the description, all that good stuff, because he does a great technical breakdown on what they sound like when you get it right, some issues you can have if you get it wrong, what happens with different heights, different toe-ins, all those things, because these speakers are fussy. And what I mean by that, guys, is any little change makes a huge difference. Now look, a lot of speakers, most speakers, you make little changes and they sound different. Sure, that's normal. That's not what I'm talking about here. These can change dramatically based on just some very minor things. You might be wondering how minor of a thing can change the sound of these speakers. I will tell you. When I listen to music, out of habit, occasionally I'll pull out my cell phone, maybe to check some emails, respond to some comments, text my boys, whatever. And when I pulled out my phone, the minute I raised it, it sounded like the right speaker's treble was cutting off, because the speakers, the top end does beam a little bit. Actually, it beams a lot, and the sweet spot is small. And with my phone in my hand, they literally sounded different than when my hand was down. I couldn't believe that. Just to test that, I put my phone back in my pocket, I put my hands up, and I just started doing this. And every time, the minute my hand crossed line of sight with the speakers, it was almost as if the top end was completely cutting out. Such a bizarre experience. So again, if you really considering buying these, Zero Fidelity reviewed them. Watch his review. It is a perfect review. As far as my experience with them, it wasn't a bad one. I was able to get them dialed, and essentially this is what I'll say about these. If you're willing to put in the time and the effort, you like to fiddle with speakers, you like to work hard to have your reward, you might really enjoy these, because when you get them dialed, they sound fantastic. When you get them dialed in right, they sound like speakers that are much more expensive than $1,000. And sorry, that's just how I'm describing them. I am purposely trying to avoid using descriptors, because it can really be different from person to person. This is the kind of speaker where like one person might say, oh, it's kind of bright. One person might say, oh, it's kind of dark. One person might say the mid-range is rich and has body. Another person might say, no, the mid-range is very dry. And everyone's right, because depending on how they have it set up, that's probably actually what they're experiencing. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if these speakers sounded different if I was wearing a t-shirt or wearing a hoodie instead. That's how much their sound can change dramatically. And with that said, I don't feel comfortable giving you my sound impressions of the speaker. Sean from Zero Fidelity has way more data points than me, way more experience than me, and a better ear, honestly, right? And he has already done it perfectly in a way that I cannot, nor do I feel comfortable to. I enjoy the sound of my own voice a lot, but not that much, right? So here's the takeaway. And this isn't a bad review, just so we're clear, it's not. And let me be clear why. If they were just fussy, I might give these speakers a bad review, because that's annoying, and I don't like when something that's fairly affordable is fussy. The reason this isn't a bad review is because when you get these dialed, they punch so much higher above their weight. For that reason, it's not a bad review. For that reason, it's actually a very good review. When you get them dialed, the sound is very, very enjoyable. I think they have a sound a lot of people would fall in love with if they can accommodate the placement requirements and get them dialed and spend the time with them and never move them once you have them dialed. Just a few other caveats that I think are important to know. If you're looking for a speaker that you're gonna like set them up and then you wanna get up and walk around the room as you listen to music, this is not it. The sound changes dramatically when you get up. The sound changes dramatically if you just like, say you have a coffee table and you lean forward to grab something. the sound will change dramatically. If you move your head side to side, changes dramatically. This speaker has a small sweet spot. It's for the guy that sits in the middle of a perfect triangle and who is willing to work to get that reward of the good sound. So I think that about wraps it up. I know we normally get into comparisons at this point, but it's hard to give you one when your mileage may vary so much. So instead, we're just going to wrap it up, and I'll say until next time, later.